All right, lads, this is a video topic that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and every time I bring it up, everyone's like, yeah, go for it. I would love to see this. This is going to be me ranking each of the FGO Part 1 story chapters, and the reason I'm so excited about it is that this has nothing to do with gameplay. I actually just get to talk about stuff that I like in FGO, like as a story, because many of you guys probably know that I am a huge Fate fan if you've been to any of the live streams, but I've seen all of the animes. I look up like random data books, random interviews. I've read novels to get even more information just about like little things here and there. Like I'm watching Siegfried and Karna fight in Apocrypha, but I'm like, I want the little extra bits of detail. So I like go into the Apocrypha data book. I'm looking at the light novel to see if it's any different. I'm a huge nerd about Fate. And so it's really exciting for me that I'm like, I could potentially also just talk about stuff that I like about the series because it's something I absolutely love. And the fact that everyone's like, yeah, absolutely, we would love to hear you kind of just talk about the lore and the characters and what your opinion is of all these like story chapters and everything. So I'm super excited to get into this. It's something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and the fact that a lot of people are just like very supportive of it means I'm ready to go do it. Now, I'm gonna leave this in the description down below and probably the pinned comment as well if you want to make your own tier list for this, but let's just try to keep things a little bit civil. Again, everybody has different things that they appreciate in stories, so maybe you like Camelot a lot more than I do. Maybe you just think that Septim is absolute peak fiction. Maybe you love the fact that Solomon is an Avengers Endgame reference, even though Avengers Endgame came out after it. You just love the idea of it being this giant, huge battle with all of the characters that we've been coming together with in part 1. Whatever your preference is, that is absolutely fine. I'm going to try to give my best reasonings for why I like each of these singularities and why I have them where. Some of them have to do with the specific servants that appear, and especially if they're like callbacks from other series that I really like. So it's going to be a long one. Make sure you strap in, you get comfortable. If you're like driving to work or something, this is a perfect video for you to throw up because, I don't know, right now at the very beginning where I'm recording this, I'm like, this is going to be like 30 to 40 minutes long, right? This is like one of those actual huge tier lists, but make sure you leave a like on the video if you enjoy video topics like this. If there's other things you want me to discuss in FGO, you could definitely drop those in the comments down below as well, and I will take a look at them because I absolutely love talking about Fate. As you could also probably expect, there's going to be one for 1.5 and there's going to be one for part 2 as well. So you could expect those in the future after I recover from doing this video. But with all that being said, let's start diving into this. So coming in at absolute dead last, probably a surprise to no one, is going to be Septim. Now, Septim is really unfortunate for me personally because I really like the Fate Extra stuff. You know, Fate Extra, CCC, Extella, and even Extella Link to kind of some degree. Extella Link is one of the ones that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it has characters that I like in it. Suffice to say, I really do like Nero. I think Nero is such a sick character. I love her in all of the appearances that she's in. So when I saw that we were going to be traveling mainly with Nero, I got really excited. And some of these story ideas that are in this chapter are so sick. Like the fact that you're going to kind of like go with Nero on this path to prove her right to kingship, right, quote unquote, is so cool because she has to go fight Julius Caesar, who kind of started the idea of what the Roman Empire was going to be. You have to go fight Romulus, who was like the founder of Rome. You have to fight Altera, you know, Attila the Hun, basically, who kind of like started some of the downfall of Rome. It's like all of these really cool trials that she has to go do. But then everything around it is just complete garbage, right? Nothing else around it is very good at all. I think going to see Boudica was kind of nice, but there's just so much random stuff that is happening all over the place in this chapter. I mean, I think the embodiment of what I'm talking about is when you go to Steno's Island and she's like, yeah, there's some treasure in there. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a 4-5 node like story chapter thing. So like it's actually a decent bit of time you got to invest in it. And you go down there, there's just a chimera, you come out and Nero's like, that sucked. Where was the treasure? And she's like, oh, I was just wasting your time. And I'm like, and that just is just the epitome of what I think Septim is to me. It's just kind of a waste of time, and it's so unfortunate because again, I really like Nero. I think Nero's super sick. I was so excited when Altera appeared because I actually started playing FGO right after I was playing Fate Extella, so I saw Altera, and I was like, oh my goodness, like Altera is such a sick character in the first Fate Extella, and she comes in, and Lev over there is like, yeah, I'm summoning you to destroy everything here. And she's like, you dummy, if you're gonna have me destroy everything, cuts him in half and is like, that includes you as well. And so that was so sick for me. I was like, dude, Altera's about to like go on a rampage, but then we kind of just walk over and beat her up. I feel like a lot of these earlier singularities would be a lot different if they were rewritten nowadays. It's kind of why I have a theory that for part 3, it might be a revisiting for like the singularities up to Camelot, because once you get to Camelot, you start to feel that they get really fleshed out. The servant choices are very particular, whereas a lot of these earlier singularities, you can definitely tell that there's some random choices being thrown in there, for lack of a better term. It also continues the random trend of Elizabeth kind of being in most of the singularities, and I'm not the biggest fan of Elizabeth. I'm sorry to all my Liz fans out there. I'm just not the biggest fan, and it kind of continues the trend of her being in everything randomly, and I'm like, go away, please. But yeah, so Septim's at the bottom. I don't really think that's a huge surprise to anyone. What I do think might be a surprise to people is that I have Okeanos at 8. Now, let me kind of justify this a little bit. I think the issue that I really have with Okeanos is that I'm just not that big of a fan of most of the servants that were used there. I do like Drake. I think she's pretty cool. She's one of those servants that, like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Drake, the waifu pirate person. For me, Drake is like a cool buddy. I can't really like see her in that way. So like reading the story was kind of cool for me, because since I'm like viewing Drake as like your buddy, right? And like you're kind of like girl boss that you're hanging out with. I was like, that made it really fun for me. I was like, you're hanging out with a really cool dude, but it's a chick. So it was really nice. But everybody else was just, I don't know, they just weren't super interesting, right? Like I had high hopes for Blackbeard, because I think I also just got done playing like the Assassin's Creed Black Flag, right? That's like a pirate game, right? And they have their own Blackbeard, and he's pretty cool in that game. And so I finished that, and I'm like, oh, Blackbeard is like this weird goober, right? Like it just kind of like takes me out of it a little bit. Nowadays, since they've just fully leaned into it, I love Blackbeard and Fate. Now I've kind of accepted that it's their own thing that they're doing. But when I was coming in here, I was like, oh, it's going to be the legendary Blackbeard, and he's kind of just a goober. And then Anne and Mary, I just don't really care too much about. Like, they were never really big deals for me. Hector, I thought, was like an interesting twist that he kind of betrayed Blackbeard. I thought that was really cool. But then we go to the Argonauts, and I think it's just one of the issues of like, we don't have enough of the actual servants, because I'm like, yeah, we got all the Argonauts. We got Jason, we got Herc, and we have Hector for some reason. And then Atalanta should be with them, but she's helping us out for some reason. And then we got Medea Lily. Like, we don't have big Medea, we have small Medea. I don't know why, but we do. So it's like, okay, that's a little weird. Our Argonauts group is really strange. And then we also just have like Artemis booling around, and David is just hanging out, dragging the Ark of the Covenant. I always forget that Asterios and Uriel are in this singularity as well. Like, when I was kind of like thinking about this in my head, and I was kind of sorting everything beforehand, because I've got this little like notepad in front of me with some notes, I always forget that they're even there, right? But which is sad, because every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's so cute. It's like the Kenpachi Yachiru dynamic from Bleach, where you've got like big guy and little guy, and big guy protects little person. You know, it's just like a very cute dynamic. But it's just kind of a shame, because I always just forget that they're there, right? It's something I never remember about it. Then it's even weirder because of like Lost Belt 5. I'm like, look, Artemis, I get that you're like weaker and you're in like a different servant container and everything, and like you've hijacked Orion's thing, but like I just saw you in the Moon Goddess event just beat up everybody that happened like a couple months before Okeanos came out, and I'm like, so you're clearly not weak. Why aren't you doing more? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I know you're not weak. I just saw you in the Moon Goddess Does Not Dream About Dumplings or something like that. You just sleeped all of Chaldea, and then you just wanted some dumplings or something. It was so weird. It's the most like bizarre event. I'm like, I just saw you do all that. Why are we not still doing that? It's a very strange singularity for me. I think one of the saving graces for me is that, and one of the reasons that I put it above Septim, as much as I like Nero, is that Drake was a character that I really had no impressions of, but when I left the singularity, I ended up liking Drake, whereas Septum was more of a disappointment because I already liked Nero and it didn't really do anything for me. So I'm like, okay, I view Okeanos a little bit better. Plus, I feel like at least Okeanos has something going on. Like you got like a pirate battle kind of at the beginning, and then you got the demon pillar stuff. You'll also notice that every singularity tends to have like a little twist at the very end, and the Okeanos one is Medea Lily turning Jason into a demon pillar. I actually do like that twist. I think it's really funny that Medea's like, you know, Jason, you were kind of mean to my older self, so what if I turn you into this big demon pillar dude? You know, you just get turned into that. So I absolutely love that. That Medea kind of gets a little bit of revenge on Jason, because as you guys know, I've been bullying on stream, being like, give me my Medea summer for like the last 2-3 years. So I love Medea getting a little bit back on that. But yeah, that's number 8. Next, I got London. So the reason I like London is entirely because I really like Mordred. It's short, and then it also has Solomon's first appearance. So when I was first reading FGO, like when I finally was able to start getting into it, because it took me a couple of attempts to get into it, because I wasn't a huge gacha fan at the time. I didn't like that. I felt like, oh, the gacha just like steals your money and it just is there to like make you go broke and stuff. So I was always really opposed to playing them. But then when people were like, no, the story's getting really good, I think it was around like America Camelot, I was like, okay, I'll start jumping into the story and I'll start catching up. As I was kind of reading through all of these singularities, I was like, who is this king person, right? Because I'm like running my mind through all of the Fate series that I've gone through, and I'm like, who is this king? Who could they possibly be? Is it going to be like Zelrich, some guy they just made up, but it's going to be like an OC character? Or is it going to be someone from like actual mythology or something? Like there's so many different guys they could use. And then when it was Solomon, I was like, oh, this is sick, right? Because Solomon's lore is that he could have wished for anything. He could have wished for like infinite wealth, to be like this all-powerful guy, but he wished for like infinite wisdom, which I think is a really cool wish. I always just found that really, really sick in that story. And then because he had like the infinite wisdom, he was able to get everything else. And I'm like, oh, so this is going to be like a really strong opponent. He's like the king of mages and is like infinitely wise. This is going to be super sick. You have the infamous line of him being like, I'm going to the bathroom, and Mordred's just like, so you're coming to take a tinkle on us? And he's like, yes, exactly. I just absolutely love the ending bit of it. I think Mordred definitely for like a lot of the beginning kind of saves going through the slog. And I feel that because there's a lot of characters that is the word like connect with the right thing to use? Connect with, vibe with, something along those lines, are in this singularity, right? Like I do like Shakespeare a lot. I love that Shakespeare is just such like a goober like caster person, but I feel like unlike Blackbeard, who I have like really high expectations for, you know, I already know that Shakespeare's kind of a goober because of Apocrypha, right? And I loved him in there and I loved him here. And then I love the dialogue that he has between Hans and himself, right? I think it's super funny that these two writers are just making fun of each other the entire time. It's super great, especially because I love Hans in CCC. CCC Hans just exists to just roast all of your servants into oblivion. It's so funny. So I loved having him here again. I love that Hans got to interact with like Nurserum again. Thought that was really cool. Thought that was kind of sick. I loved that Frankenstein kind of developed a little bit in the singularity. I know that's kind of hard to say because she doesn't do a whole lot, but I love that because she doesn't do too much, she's not like being Frankenstein, quote unquote, and then towards the end she kind of starts to fight a little bit. I was like, oh dude, Fran is like starting to do stuff. That's really cool. So I love that. I even kind of like some of the Babbage dialogue. I feel like he was really one of the only real villains that we were fighting. I kind of like some of the stuff that he was spitting out there. I forget his name. I know it's like something Zokin that we also find. He's like an NPC that we still haven't gotten anything for. But I thought he was really cool at the end. The Sherlock mystery kind of starting there where we meet him as a caster, that was also rather cool. I think there's just a lot of like cool nuggets that kind of happen in London. So I don't hate it, right? I do enjoy going through it, and definitely traveling with Mordred, who is one of my favorite parts of Apocrypha because I feel like she's one of the only real characters in Apocrypha, which I know is going to make some people mad, but she's one of the few people that I can actually see that actually has this entire arc. And like from where she starts in Apocrypha and where she ends is a completely different person, right? Like she's kind of like actually gotten over the fact that you know, she had that whole battle with Artoria, and it's why, like, in Summer 1, you could see Mordred's trying to get along with Artoria now, and it's why Artoria makes me mad. I know I'm going on a tangent, but it's why she makes me mad. I'm like, hey, Mordred's trying to make up with you, all right? Let's be nice, you know? Be nice to your son, daughter, whatever. It's fate, it's weird. But, yeah, that's kind of where London's going to be sitting. Then we hit Fuyuki. So Fuyuki, I feel like, is kind of the standard that you gotta hit in storytelling for FGO. I feel like Fuyuki sets up a lot of like good lore bits. I feel like even if you're not a, you know, someone who's ever like played a Fate game or read a Fate novel or watched an anime, you can watch Fuyuki and it gives you a good idea of what a master is, how master-servant relationships work. What is a servant? What can a servant be? You know, when like Olga's explaining that a servant could be a mythological character, they could be a historical character, they could even be like a concept or an idea, they could be something more vague as long as it's been recorded. I'm like, that's really cool. There's not a lot of servants running around in this singularity, but I feel like that's why this one doesn't suffer as much from like the random-itis that some of these other ones can have, because it's very focused, right? You encounter Medusa, you know, you fight her, Ku kind of helps you out. Then you also fight like, I think it's Benkei and Hassan in the game, and in the anime, I forget what it is in the OVA, you fight like some other people. I think it's just Medusa actually, but it's just very like kind of controlled, so it's very nice, right? It kind of just flows very naturally. I feel there's not a whole lot of random-itis in there. You get to fight Emiya, and I think the OVA did this a lot of justice as well in the Emiya versus Ku fight as well. I also feel like this just starts the Ku redemption project, which is finished in America over here. But it starts the Ku redemption process because Fate Stay Night did not treat Ku very nicely. A lot of people come out of Fate Stay Night being like, Ku is a big meme. Ku sucks. And I'm like, no, Ku is OP. Ku is that guy. You just don't know about it. And they started here with Ku Caster, and I'll say they end it with Ku Alter. And, well, that's why America will be a little bit higher. Spoiler alert. But absolutely loved it. I love that Saber Alter was like the final villain here because I just think Saber Alter is really sick. I like that Lev kind of explains the whole thing that's going on. You kind of set up the whole plot for FGO. Like, it's just a very solid singularity. Kind of plants the seeds for everything else going forward. The only thing, and I feel like this is going to be a controversial statement or a base take, I didn't really care when Olga died. I'm not going to lie. Because she was just really mean to us the entire time. And then she died, and I was like, you killed a character that didn't say anything really nice to me the entire time. Now, nowadays, with Lost Belt 7, I definitely like her a lot more. I will definitely say they redeemed that character a lot for me, but initially in Fuyuki, I was like, yeah, Olga's a very cute character, I get that, but I just like, I didn't care a whole lot at the time. I was like, you're just been mean to me. You know, I was like, I don't really care all that much. It wasn't super compelling for me. It'd be like a lot different if we lost MASH, right? Because I think that scene with MASH and Ritsuka, or just Ritsuka holding back the Saber Alter, Excalibur Morgan's really, really cool. And then Ku finally comes in and takes out Saber Alter. That's just all really sick. So I do have a fondness for Fuyuki, and I think the singularity that kind of starts being real is Orleans. Now, again, I'm one of the weirdos that actually does like Apocrypha. I mean, it's because I can kind of turn my brain off a little bit for it, and I can just appreciate that it's just a bunch of big, dumb servants fighting each other, and a bunch of just big, dumb explosions happening, right? I think it's very good sometimes to be like, you know what? Sometimes not every series has to be super deep. Sometimes the writer's like, I just want to take all my action figures and throw them on the table and let them punch each other. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta let that happen, right? And so I was completely down in Apocrypha, and I kind of like that Orleans using Jean as one of the main characters is kind of a reference to Apocrypha. I thought that was really cool, you know, two rulers with their teams of servants going up against each other. I thought that was absolutely sick. This also plants the seeds for Jalter, who is currently my main waifu character in FGO, right? I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. She might get replaced by Morgan. We'll see when Lost Belt 6 officially comes out, but it planted the seeds for that, and it started this couple of event story for her, right? Where she went through Orleans, and she went through the Salter Christmas event at the very end, then the Da Vinci storyline, and then she finally culminated all of that in Summer 3, where now Jalter's just a big goober, right? And I absolutely love it. I love the little journey. You can kind of see her softening up as she goes along. super cute. So I love they introduced that character. The twist for this one, where it was like, no, actually Giles was the one who made the wish for Jalter, and he's the Grail holder. I thought that was really cool, because in Fate Zero, you'll remember that Giles was kind of going on about how he wanted this ideal form of Jean, and he's like, oh, I want Jean to just kind of take the reins and become this woman I know she can be, and he created Jalter. I'm like, that's really cool. We got to see what he was kind of talking about. We got to kind of see his wish fulfilled that he wanted in Zero in Orleans. I thought that was really, really cool. I also love the manga version of Orleans. This is going to be like an eye-opener for some people. They'll be like, what? There's a manga for FGO? Dog, there's 2 mangas for FGO. And in one of them, they have Lancelot go buck wild. Like, he just unloads on people. It takes like 5 different servants to take him out. Even after they've like lopped off one of his arms, he goes crazy. I absolutely love it. Lancelot's one of my favorite characters in Fate. He's definitely like up there in like the top 10. And so I love that they just did him absolute justice in here. He just went on a rampage. They also made Siegfried appear like so chatty. Like, he's so cool in this one. It's like, once we get Siegfried, we could take down Fafnir and we've won the battle. Again, if you've read the light novel version for, like, say, the initial Karna versus Siegfried fight, they just absolutely gas up Siegfried. I'll give you guys the TLDR if you've never read it. It's like, people don't know that Siegfried is like this huge, insanely skilled swordsman because you never really get to see it. But how they describe it in the Apocrypha light novel is that Karna is someone who fights in the domain of the gods, right? It's like every human person kind of sits in the realm of man, and they only hope to fight in the realm of the gods. But when Siegfried was fighting Karna, in that initial battle, he took a step into the realm of the gods to fight Karna, which just like puts him far and away above like so many of these other swordsmen in Fate. And people just don't know how crazy the guy is. And so once they kind of were just like, oh, we got to get Siegfried, this legendary warrior. And the fact that Jalter's group put like layers upon layers of curses upon him to try to lock him down and seal him away was super cool. Again, I also love little things like the Mozart speech to MASH, man, I can't speak. But I love that a lot, and that kind of carries through MASH through all of the different journeys. She kind of references back to it. I'm like, that's really cool, and especially love it because Mozart's like a 2-star servant, right? And I love that this low rarity servant could have such an impact on the story as a long term, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I think some people also know about another low star servant that gets a really, really cool scene as well. I really love it when games do that, when they treat their low rarity servants with some respect. They're like, just because they're low class does not mean they're bad, and does not mean they do not deserve respect. Do love that a lot. So Orleans, I just have a lot of praise for. I feel like it's a very good follow-up for Fuyuki as well. It's like, okay, Fuyuki, it was kind of tame because there wasn't a whole lot of servants running around, but bam, we have Orleans over here. It's going crazy. I felt like the pacing was very good, and I enjoyed all the little battles here and there. The only thing that I think I would change, and again, if this was written in, you know, current time, I feel like Jean, instead of summoning like a bunch of random dudes like Berserker Atalanta, which I did like that they were Berserkers, by the way. I love that Jalter's plan of just destroying France, instead of summoning them as normal servants, she's like, no, screw that. I'm going to summon you guys all as Berserkers because I don't care about your personalities, don't care about your traits. I just want you to go nuts and destroy France. Absolutely loved it. And I think a little understandably so. You know, she just got revived after she got burned at the stake. She's a little admittedly upset, but I think if this were made nowadays, she would summon like Charlemagne's knights or something, right? She would summon French dudes or something that's a bit more appropriate, because I'm like, Atalanta's like a Greek servant. I don't know what she has to do with France. Lancelot made sense. He's originally a French knight, even though he is a part of the Knights of the Round Table. He's originally French. And Chevalier de Aeon, I believe, is also French. So, like, some of them made sense. I kind of like some of that stuff, but I feel like we'd get more appropriate guys if it was more written in more recent times. Or maybe we would have Charlemagne on our team as well, but they kind of already did that in Trom, so who knows what they're going to be doing going forward. But yeah, I do like Orleans. I think it's a very good follow-up to what I consider to be kind of like the standard for a singularity in Fuyuki. Then moving on to number 4, we have Camelot. Now, I know this might be a little bit more of a hot take because I know Camelot's really popular. My only real problem with Camelot is that it's a very slow burn singularity. And some people do like that, but I feel like it almost takes a little too long for things to start getting interesting and for things to start happening. It's kind of one of my issues with it. Now, that might seem a little bit contradictory because when we talk about Babylonia later, Babylonia is also long, but I think the difference that I have between the both of them is that Babylonia, I feel like we're always kind of like doing things, and I don't want to spoil where it's going to be at on the tier list, but I'll kind of explain that the way that Babylonia is long, I like. The way that Camelot is long, I don't really like. Like, it just kind of takes a little bit too long to get to certain spots. But I also do love the fact that Camelot sets up a lot of stuff. Like, it sets up Hassan. I think that's really, really dope, because then we're going to see him in Babylonia later, and we're like, oh, we know that guy. That was like the guy that just beat up Gawain so we could get into Camelot itself and go fight Lancer Artoria. But stuff that I like about it. I do really like the Ozymandias faction. I think it's hilarious that as soon as we get there, like, Hassan had already decapitated him, so half the time, like, I just imagined when I was reading it, Ozzy was just, like, holding his head, being like, yes, welcome, travelers. I see that you've stood into my palace. Your heads are far too high. And he's like, that was a joke. And I'm like, I just imagine that, because Ozzy has so much charisma, and I think he's so cool. I mean, he's literally Egyptian Gilgamesh, right? And Gilgamesh is my favorite Fate character, so how could I not love Ozzy? So I love that. I loved Nitocris as a new character when she was kind of a part of this story chapter. I absolutely fell in love with that character. I think she's so cool, and I think stuff they do with her in the future, no spoilers, makes her even more sick. I was not the biggest fan of, like, the Hassan tribe thing. That's part of the times that I felt like I was getting a little bit bored, but I did also find it kind of cute that these assassins, right, like the Hassans, are, like, taking care of people. I found that to be, like, a really cute thing. I don't know why, but I was like, oh yeah, cursed arm Hassan, who's got, like, the arm of the devil, right? And he has, like, this insta-kill crush heart technique. He's taking care of some kids over here, just being a lovely chap. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I love that so much. Or like Hassan of like 100 Personas you just saw in Fate Zero is like willing to masquerade herself and like kind of skulk around in the Grail War and everything. It's just hanging out with some kids, taking that care of them, right? Serenity needs no introduction. Serenity's absolutely adorable. I think we all like Serenity. Thankfully, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about gameplay, but I just thought about it. I'm like, thankfully she's getting her arts buff soon, so I can actually use her now. That'll be really nice. But I loved all that. I love the Arash taking on Rongaminiad thing, especially in the way that the movies did it, where it's just this little pew-pew arrow just kind of goes up into the sky against this huge torrential beam of golden death, and it just kind of obliterates the whole thing. It's so cool, and I especially love that Tawara is right there the entire time. If you don't know who Tawara is, it's the Rice Man, it's the Rice Archer. He throws the rice balls at you, right? You might have forgotten about him, but I loved that in the game, Arash is like, you need to leave. Like, you have to go. Like, I'm going to fend off Rongaminiad. You can't be here. But Tawara is like, no. Like, this is going to be a legendary event that needs to be witnessed. Like, someone must bear witness to this iconic event that's going to happen. And I absolutely loved it, because then Arash fires the arrow, he disappears, the Rongo is dispersed, and Tawara's like, that was truly magnificent, right? Like, I just love the fact that he was like, no, like, you're not going out alone, buddy. Like, I'm gonna at least watch you go out, because you deserve at least that much. I'm like, that's really cool. Speaking of Tawara, I love Sanzo in this event. It's been really nice nowadays that I've gotten spooked by 3 Sanzos, so mine is NP3 because I absolutely loved her in Camelot. I love that she just kind of like punches down the Camelot gate. That was really cool to me. She's just like, bam, punch down the gate. And I'm like, we should have done that earlier, man. We should have done that a long time ago. So I absolutely love her. I love that she's just kind of trotting around, getting lost all the time, and she's just dragging Tawara around, and he's like, well, I gotta, keep her safe because, she can't be wandering around, but, quote unquote, keep her safe when she's got these palms of death that she could just be dispersing on people. I mean, we've all seen the NP, right? She's definitely capable of defending herself. But then the Knights of the Round Table, I loved that Lancelot, again, a character that I really liked, there was a little twist around that, right? They were like, you're just going around and just slaughtering all these people. And he's like, no, don't misunderstand. I was going around saving people. And he's like, I think that Artoria has definitely lost their way, but you know, I don't also want to betray my my king, essentially, right? That's kind of always the dynamic that Lancelot has, is that he doesn't want to betray the king, but sometimes he doesn't agree with their actions. And so I really like that he was like, well, what doesn't know Artoria can't hurt them, right? Like the fact that they don't know that I'm keeping these people around is not doing them any harm, and it makes my conscience feel better that I'm keeping them alive. So I really like that. Mordred, I think, kind of suffered a little bit. She kind of just turned into like a big meat stick just punching people, and it was really unfortunate that we don't get like any reference to London. It's like, no, it's a different Mordred, and she's been like overwritten with like the berserker thing, because Lancer Artoria does the same thing to Tristan, right? Because Tristan should also recognize us from like, I think I'm misunderstanding. I'm thinking of somebody else. So, sorry, there's a lot of notes that I have over here. But Tristan also like had his personality rewritten as well. So it's like, it's fine that Mordred doesn't recognize us. That's okay, because Lancer Artoria gave these Grail buffs to everybody to kind of like mess around with them and give them amps. Tristan in particular, I like, because when Camelot was originally falling apart, Tristan was one of like the first people to just dip. Like, he just leaves as soon as everything is just going under. And so I like that Artoria kind of like flipped his personality so that he would stay put, because Tristan is really, really OP. Lancer Artoria themselves, I think, is maybe one of the weakest parts for me, because I think they just have a very weird plan, but it's also kind of cool, because she's like, okay, look, Goetia is going to blow up everything. I'm just going to float outside of reality in my little kingdom after he blows everything up. And I'm like, okay, interesting plan. That's definitely a neat plan. I like that she's kind of like, look, everything's going to get blown up anyway, but I'm going to take my city and just float around in space. And I'm like, that's kind of neat. And I like the idea that we're now exploring what a like goddess Artoria could look like if they just never let go of Rongaminiad, which is stupid dummy broken, right? So it's kind of like a very interesting concept of her just becoming this full goddess. Definitely love that, but I don't know if they really like kind of fleshed out a lot of her ideals too much, or like made it very convincing for me. So that is kind of like a bit of a weaker part. But I do find it interesting that, you know, Merlin kind of saw what Artoria became, and then he sent Bedivere over there to kind of almost like kind of like put her out of her misery, kind of in a way. It's kind of how I look at it a little bit, and I do like it a lot. I think it's kind of cool on Merlin's part. But yeah, I mean, Camelot overall, like, it's a bit of a slow burn. That's why it's kind of a little weaker for me. But when things start to get going, right? Like, it starts to get really, really good. I mean, like, I even like the part where Gawain and Hassan are fighting, and Hassan's like not even necessarily trying to beat Gawain, even though he could. He's more or less trying to like instill a nugget of wisdom onto Gawain, because Gawain is very conflicted. He doesn't know if he wants to keep doing this, because he's having to like kill innocent civilians, and he's like, I don't really like doing this. This is not really cool. I don't feel like this is right. And Hassan is kind of giving him little nuggets of wisdom. So I do like when stuff starts to happen, it really starts to feel very good. It's just a little bit slow for me. Now, Solomon, it had to be kind of high, because I remember reading this when I was about at America, because Solomon was happening, it was going to start coming out about when I was like reading America, when I was like reading through everything and catching up. And I was just kind of going through some of the JP translations when it was coming out, because I was that excited. And it was literally just insane thing after insane thing after insane thing. I'm like, dude, Jalter, Dante's come back, like they just, like Dante's rips a hole through space-time, runs over, says, I'm not gonna miss out on this battle. Jalter's like, yeah, this portal in space-time was just open. You mind if I butt in? And then Amakusa's like, these two are a little bit of a problematic, sussy baka pair of people, right? I'm gonna keep my eyes on them. Mind if I also blow up some demon pillars? Like, it's just crazy thing. Like, Iskandar and Raiko are like, you know, let's see if my Zeus lightning is better than your purple lightning, and they're just like just destroying demon pillars as they're having a contest. Ishtar and Enkidu are fighting each other, and as a byproduct of their fight, they're killing demon pillars. And then Gilgamesh is just standing there just like, hey, you know, that's just what happens sometimes. You know, you put those two in the same area and, you know, they're just gonna fight. You know, Artoria's leading all the knights of the round table in. It's so cool, right? Like, Nero and all the Romans are just gathered together, and then Altera's like, hey, I'm sorry that I kind of like bulled out in your singularity, but now that the events of Extella have happened, we're cool, right? And Nero's like, yeah, we're real cool. Let's just go start beating people up. It's just like so much cool stuff is happening, just like back to 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 back. And I know this is gonna be a hot take, but I liked reading it, you know, in game a lot more than how the movie did it. I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd and I just like reading things, but I was kind of like, man, I wanted to see more crazy stuff happening. You know, I thought some of the fights in Solomon, because it's all literally just fights. Like there's very like little story at the very end, kind of explaining like what's up with Goetia and what he wants and all that blah blah blah. But it's mostly like servants going around just boxing up people, right? And it's super cool. Although, can I say that I really liked how the reading more than the OVA? Because I'm thinking about like how we're just like riding on like Alexander, and Ritzka's like kind of using all of his servants like pretty well, like in the anime. I don't know, maybe I just like them both. You know, let me just leave it at that, and I'll give it more thoughts on if I like which version I actually like more, because I'm going back and forth on it right now in my head. But yeah, pulling up on Goetia, I think the whole like twist that it's like, well, it was never Solomon, it was Goetia like piloting Solomon's corpse around because he just didn't believe in Solomon's answer. And then you have the really good scene where Mash goes out. I actually did like that scene because I'm actually okay. So this is gonna sound like it's not connected, but it is connected. I'm watching all of the Kamen Rider series right now. Well, not all the 1960 ones. I'm starting in Heisei, so like the 2000 stuff. I'm watching all of that, and it's a very similar like kind of narrative thing that they use, where someone like won't have an answer, but then like they'll find their answer and they'll go out in like some blaze of glory once they find this answer they've been searching all series for. And I think it's really cool that MASH also got to do that. Like, I like that scene even more now that I'm watching this other series that kind of references something like that. I know that like MASH isn't my favorite character overall, but I do really like that scene. I like that MASH is like, I found something, like I actually found something that I value, something that I want to protect, something that I think is worth my life, and I'm going to go do it. Like, I'm going to go protect it. I absolutely love that. And then, you know, Ritzka just starts beating the dog out of Goetia. I'm just like, you could feel it, bro. Like, I felt that. I felt that man was upset. Again, like, I don't even like MASH that much, and I was upset. I was like, you can't kill my Kohai like that. That's rude. And then obviously the Romani reveal. I thought that was so sick. Solomon literally is like the meme of like, comes in, drops NP, disappears, doesn't elaborate. Like, it's so funny and it's so cool. And I also love the fact that there's actually a second fight right after the Goetia fight, where Goetia is like depowered, you know, he's dissolving, he's disintegrating, and he's like, but I believe in my ideals. And he's like, there's no servants, there's no demon god pillars, no more magic, we're both out of everything. And he's like, this is just the two of us. Like, this is just us fighting one-on-one. This is just one man fighting another guy. And I'm like, that's, or a girl, right? If you're playing as the female Ritzka. So you can also do that. But you get what I'm saying. It's just like a one-on-one. It's just so cool. The only thing that I thought kind of cheapened it a little bit is that Foe kind of revived MASH at the very end. And I was like, come on, bro. Like, I get we want the happy ending, but you know, Foe can just bring it. I get it's like a one-time thing and everything. It's fine. But it's also because Foe is Beast 4, otherwise known as Primate Murder. And, you know, I was really looking forward to seeing that Beast appear at some point. But because he gave up his Beast power to revive MASH, I'm like, no, I wanted to see Beast 4. I wanted to see how he would handle it. It sounded so cool. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get it in the future or something. I don't know. But yeah, Solomon overall, it's just gas. It's just straight all gas. It's just, you go to the gas station, you take out every pump, you just start throwing it all over the place, which is not a smart idea. Don't replicate that. But it's just straight up gas all over the place. It's just full throttle the entire time, and I absolutely love it. And again, it's literally like Avengers Endgame before Avengers Endgame, dude. It's so sick. And again, I love Jean a lot. Jean is the one that comes in, it's just like, bam, here's the flag, all the servants follow. Absolutely love it. All right, next we got America. Now this is probably going to be the one that a lot of people scratch their head at, being like, why is America so high? I'll tell you right now, I love Ku Alter. He's literally like Broly, but for Fate, which is ironic because I don't really like Broly very much in Dragon Ball, but he's like that. Like, he's just the ultimate Giga Chad character. and I love it. Now, yeah, America does kind of have a little bit of the problem of there being some random servants, right? Like, we've got American guys, makes sense, America. You know, we've got Edison, who's like the concept of every president shoved into one, which is hilarious, and they turn into a lion and not an eagle for some reason. But then we also got the Celtic people, right? Because they're the people that are invading America. Okay, makes sense. Then we got Nero, like Liz. We got the Hindu servants, like we got Karna, Arjuna, and Rama just bulling about. Beowulf is hanging out. I'm pretty sure Beowulf is English. Like he's like an English folk tale person. So I'm like, we just got a whole bunch of random dudes bulling about, and they didn't give us Sita at this point, and then Arcade got it. So that's something I'm still a little upset about. Arcade collab, please. Sita, please give that to me. I need that. It's been way too long. It's been 7 years, 8 years, something like that. It's been too long, right? But I do love the story, right? I absolutely love that Kualter is just kind of like this big menace to society. Every time I see him on screen, I turn into like a giddy little schoolgirl, dude. Like, Nero's like, okay, here's the plan. I'm gonna trap Maeve in my little NP. The NP makes me stronger and it makes her weaker, so I can definitely beat her. And then Kualter just rips the NP open, walks into it so he's getting weakened, and then just pokes Nero Bride and then leaves. Like, the dude is so cool. My guy tanks Vasavdi Shakti and then just says, wow, I'm going home. Peace. And then just leave. Well, kills Karna, takes Vasavdi Shakti, leaves after trying to fight us, right? Goes to fight his mentor. Skahawk's like, you're pretty good. And he just like whips out the NP, bap, takes her out, and she's forced to retreat. Like, he's just an absolute menace, and I'm completely here for it, right? I love it so much. The only thing I don't love is that they actually don't even explain, at least in the game, how we actually beat him. Because we go in, right? We're fighting Kualter and Maeve. Rama throws like Brahmastra at Maeve. He takes Maeve out. Maeve gives the Grail to Kualter. We fight Kualter for a little bit, and he starts to get stronger. He's going through his ascensions, and it's like literally the cutscenes are, we fight Kualter, we're like, oh no, he's getting stronger, goes to Ascension 2. Fight him again, oh no, he's getting stronger, goes to Ascension 3. Then we go to fight him again, and then the cutscene just says, we did it, we won, cool. Like, we don't see him fade out or anything, there's nothing like that. The guy just disappears. They just do not elaborate how we beat this guy, because keep in mind, he already beat Rama at the very beginning of the Singularity, right? So like, I think whoever was writing this Singularity, because I forget who it was. I know it's not Nasu, it was one of the other writers. I think they just made him too strong and then they couldn't figure out how to actually take him out. But I love it. Absolutely love it. And then they just doubled down on his interludes. His interludes, he just does some of the same things. Like, he tanks Maeve's Chariot, which is like an anti-male NP. He tanks Vasavdi Shakti again, gets poisoned like 45 times, and then goes and fights Heracles and Saber Alter. And it's just so sick. Like, I absolutely love it. I think the manga's getting to America around this point, or they just kind of started digging into America a little bit, and I'm so excited to see what they do with Kualter. It's not like it's just being carried by Kualter, though. I just love a lot of the characters that are being used here, even though it's a bunch of random dudes. I do like Karna a lot. I like Skahawk a lot. I like that Tesla reappears, because Tesla is just really smug when he's around Edison, so I absolutely love that. I do like Maeve a lot. So the fact that she was kind of like one of the main antagonists here was really cool. I like the whole like Rama journey thing as well, because I think Rama's a really cool Hindu hero, or I guess I should say Indian hero, but I just really like him a lot. So it's just like a bunch of characters that I really like, and they're all just kind of like having this big bungus battle, and I'm just completely here for it, right? Look, you might say, but what about the writing of Camelot? I'm like, dog, I do not care. It is so much cool stuff going down at once, I can't handle it. It's literally just like dopamine being injected right into my veins, dude. It feels so good, all right? And then obviously, a Babylonia is going to be number one. Babylonia, like, I wanted to be a contrarian and put America at 1. I really wanted to do that. But I'm like, dog, Gilgamesh is one of the main characters of Babylonia, and he is my favorite dude. Like, I love him so much. So for that reason as well, I don't like Ishtar a whole lot because I'm a Gilgamesh stan, and Gilgamesh doesn't like Ishtar, so I don't like Ishtar, because Ishtar ruined a lot of stuff in Gilgamesh's life. and they make fun of her for it. Like when she loses Gugalana, they make fun of her, and I was there for it the entire time. I thought the direction they took in Kido where it's like, well, actually, it's Kingu. They're the son of Tiamat. I thought that was really interesting, and then eventually, towards the very end, Kingu becomes his own person and is like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And Gilgamesh again kind of does the Tawara thing to Arash, where he like bear witnesses to it, and he's just like, oh, that was really good. He's like, you finally like restrained the actual gods themselves, if for but a moment, and it's so cool. Oh dude, now I'm thinking about Gilgamesh, and I'm like, just come, like he comes back to life and then just blasts Tiamat, and I'm like, oh dude, this is so good. Like, I don't know who wrote Babylonia, but they just threw Gilgamesh in there specifically for me. Like, if you're reading it on your phone, he just pops in out of nowhere, right? It's like, how are we gonna win? We've got like Ereshkigal trying to lock him down because he's in the underworld. Merlin is like, he's taking care of like the mud, and like Hassan gave her the concept of death and clipped her wings, but we still can't do anything. She's still too strong. And then you just hear Gilgamesh laughing, pops in out of nowhere, and then just bam, just blows up Tiamat, and I love it. So everything with Gilgamesh gives this like infinite points for me. But I told you guys I would tell you what I felt about this being long versus Camelot. The reason I really like Babylonia, and I've heard this as a complaint from some people, but I really love it, the fact that you're in it for so long, it makes Babylonia feel super lived in. It feels like a home away from home, right? Or it starts to feel like home, because you're like even just doing things like you're assisting people around the city. And so when the city slowly starts to get destroyed and everything, that actually made me sad, because I was like, dog, that's where I was like living for the last couple of months, right? That's where like me and Ushi were having a conversation. That's where Leonidas was training me. Like, it's just all of this like I think it's just really good writing in a way, because it makes you feel when even the city itself dies. It almost feels like the city was its own character, right? And so I really loved that experience. It was one of the things that I really, really did like. As far as a supporting cast, I thought Anna was absolutely adorable. I think she's pretty good. Ushi, goated, especially with what they did in the anime, has a really cool scene. Leonidas versus Gorgon is one of my favorite Fate things, period. I rewatch it about every other week. I think it is so chatty. I absolutely love it. And his speech that he gives to Ritsuko, where he's just like, you know, humanity always like lives within me and stuff. So cool, right? I think it's so dope. Everything with Ereshkigal I think is funny. I think it's a little bit more funny in the actual game, because you get to do like all the individual little trial things. I think it's super super nice, and it's adorable, because Gilgamesh is like, we don't actually need to fight Ereshkigal, because Ereshkigal is being a tsundere. Like, she doesn't actually hate humanity. She loves humanity, and so you just need to talk to her. And you go and talk to Ereshkigal, and this is like cute conversation, and then, you know, she kind of joins our team, and I think it's super adorable. I think Ishtar redeems herself a little bit for me, but again, because I'm a huge Gil stan, I can never like really admit to that. I loved Quetzalcoatl. I've told this story numerous times. Going through the Singularity, I wasn't planning on summoning for Quetzalcoatl. I was like, I'm gonna save my Saint Quartz when this one comes out and just try to get Caskill. And then I ended up just like falling in love with Quetzalcoatl's character. I'm like, she's such a fun character. She has the smug grin. Just everything about this character just screamed yes. And her final like thing against Tiamat is so cool. She just like stomps Tiamat in, and then we're like, all right, bam, smack her with a command spell, and then she like cracks the horn and everything. So dope. I guess talking about the Tiamat thing, I did like the payoff for I guess Medusa Lily, or Anna, whatever you want to call her. I think her kind of like realizing and kind of beating Gorgon was a really cool thing, and then kind of getting her final ascension as kind of the, I guess, the physical manifestation of that, I thought was really, really sick. Tiamat as a final villain I thought was also really cool as well, because I think that was one of the only times we really actually got to see like one of these beasts kind of go on a rampage and really show what they're capable of, because Prototype had B6 in it, but obviously not only is that stuff really incomplete, and you can kind of only get bits and pieces of it, but you don't actually like see it. You have to like read about the vague little fragments we've got, and then you know, there's not really any other works where they like kind of have just thrown a full rampaging beast going out there. And I thought Tiamat was really dope. I even loved how they did it in the anime, where Ritsuko gets to talk to Tiamat before she actually goes, and I thought that was really cute as well, because Tiamat was ultimately like, you know, Earth is home and everything, and I don't actually like hate everybody. I actually love my children and stuff. And I'm like, that's sad. No, we don't have to kill Tiamat. And then I remember that she's going to blow up the planet. And I was like, okay, maybe we do got to put a stop to her. But when we summon her, then it can be all nice and cutesy and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of my whole ranking of all of the singularities here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If there's anything else you guys want me to talk about, I'll be sure to do that. If you guys enjoy this one, I'll do the 1.5 ones, like the Shinjuku Shimosa stuff. That one will probably be a bit shorter, or maybe it'll be the same length because I'll be like, oh yeah, it's only like 4 of them. You know, that means I have a lot more time to talk, and then it just goes on for like an hour and a half because I thought I had more time. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If there are any things you want me to talk about, be sure to list them. Like the video if you made it this far. And yeah, subscribe for more content, for FGO gameplay, and hopefully for more just discussion things like this, because I would love to do this more in the future. But yeah, you guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.